Alright, what's up guys? So this is going to be the last video for the bodywork, thankfully. So obviously you guys, if you guys saw the last video, we started doing all the sanding. We actually molded the quarter panels on it. I'll put the link up above. For this episode, we're going to be working on the front bumper, a little bit of the rear bumper, and then the doors. The doors are going to be the majority of this episode because that is what is going to take the most time, and that's pretty much the last major piece of the car that needs to be body worked. But right now I'm going to show you guys what I've been doing with the front bumper. The end of that last video, I put it up on this bumper stand. I started sanding it. I got the tape off finally. I ended up just using a red like Scotch-Brite Brillo pad and some brake cleaner, and that was able to get the brake cleaner got the adhesive off, but then that actually was able to scrub it. So got that all off. What I just did right now off camera is I opened up the turn signal areas. Now I have it so this area slots in down here, and then it goes through that slot right there, and it will mount. So the only thing I'm gonna have to do is, this is just a fiberglass bumper. There's nothing on the underside to mount it. So I'm going to build a bracket that goes to this fog light housing. So it'll have a bolt in here, which will then bolt the bracket up to there, which then this will bolt to the bracket. For these areas, instead of wrapping in this vent, I'm going to paint it black. So that's another thing. Maybe the black up here will go, will match this really well. So that's another thing I'll have to see once it's done. So this area I'm going to tape off, and I'm going to spray this inside here black. I don't think I'll spray inside here black because the cover is on, but then this I already started taping off. This whole area is going to be black because on a factory grill, this area is black. This inside portion of the grill is black, and then up here is black as well. So I'm going to paint all of this. I have the spray paint somewhere. Paint all of this like a nice satin slash matte black, just to match what an OEM would be. I have a new emblem on the way. I have actually it's coming from the UK, a pink STI one, from like an OEM STI pink one. So that'll be cool once that comes in. I just got to finish up masking off the bumper from the grill, and then this will be ready to be sprayed. I'm gonna tape these off right now. I just wanted to get this cutting done before starting to just tape everything off. So now we'll tape all that off. I'll probably put it down over here and I'll spray it, and then I got to take the rear bumper back off, and I got to mount the license plate and the license plate lights. Well, technically not the plate, but I need to make holes for the plate. I got to make some type of mounting system for the plate lights. So I'll do that once the paint is drying on this. Okay, so I've got second coat of paint going over here. It's coming out pretty good so far. Not getting too much overspray on everything. Then the rear bumper, I found the center of here to here, and then I got this license plate, and I found the center to that, which was right there. Won't focus on it, but basically lined the lines up, figured out where I wanted the plate to be put. Then I just figured out what height I wanted the plate to be at, marked some holes, drilled the holes right now. Now I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do for the license plate light. So this bracket, this gray piece is actually broken. This is one of the broken ones that came off of my green impreza when I swapped. I think I actually took these red plate lights from the red car and actually put them on the green car because they weren't broken. And these brackets are supposed to like screw into the factory bumper. Obviously this is not a factory bumper, so I need to figure out some other way, which I'm thinking if I use, since that these screws screw into the back of this, you can't really see it, so maybe if I use this gray piece as like the nut on the back side of it, so basically put the gray piece on the other side, and then kind of basically what I'll be doing is sandwiching this piece of the bumper in between the lens and this, because that would work, but then the only issue I might have is that the screws won't be long enough to go through the lens, through the fiberglass bumper, and then into this piece. So the other plan that I had, which is now looking more likely, is just drill these holes big enough with like a step bit to be able to fit this through it, then mark, and then put it through and mark the 2 holes for here into this, then drill the holes, and I could either just use the fiberglass to screw these screws into, which might work, but I'm not sure how strong the screws will have a bite into the fiberglass, since that there's going to be nothing pretty much on the other side like this plastic would to hold it into place. Or I think I have small enough like bolts that I could just bolt it through. That way it has a nut on the other end, and I won't need to worry about these screws backing out. I think what I'm going to do first, I think I'm going to go with my second idea, just because then I don't need to try and reuse this piece. I don't need to like trim a bunch of it out, because a lot of this is like raised and stuff that I'll need it flat. This lens itself has a gasket on it, so that's what seals the water out, so I don't really need this piece anyway. As long as that gasket will just seal against that, then we're fine. So I think what I'm going to do is just take this apart. I'm going to measure that right there to see what size hole I need to make. Then I'll drill those, because I already marked where I want the 2 plate lights. Just drill the 2 holes, take this apart so I can stick the lens into there, and then I'll see how I want to go with mounting this onto there. I think I'm going to just try and use these screws first, and then if I could, like, once I secure it, if I could jiggle it around and it seems like it's going to pull out, then I'll get some small bolts and some nuts for it. But if I could reuse these screws, then that'll be ideal. Alright, so just drilling that 1 large hole in the center to fit the harness through, and then just drilling 2 small holes with a 3/32 drill bit. I drilled a super small hole for the screws, just so the screws have as much bite as possible, and they actually thread in pretty tough, and it's not going anywhere. Literally, the fiberglass itself starts flexing when that moves. So as you can see underneath, harness comes out, and now I'm just going to do the same for the other side, and that is literally perfect. Literally all today and last night I was like trying to figure out how to mount these license plate lights, like if I was going to cut like massive holes in here to try, like big openings to try and get these things to fit. And I was literally, for some reason, I was like, it was keeping me up at night trying to figure out how to mount these things in. And I guess it didn't help that I never actually like took a look at what the license plate, like how it mounts. So like the whole time I'm trying to figure out how to get this to bolt up to the bumper. I'm like, this is going to be impossible. Like I'm going to have to somehow like glue it on or fiberglass this in. Didn't even think that I could just take this off and use this piece only. So there's no bulb in there right now. I'm switching to LEDs, and I don't have the LED bulbs with me. Plus, this is going to have to get off when I go to wrap it anyway. So I'm going to do the other side, and then the rear bumper is fully done. So next time Matt has any available time, we're going to bang out the rear bumper and also the front bumper at the same time. Now that he has his twins, time is very, very limited for him. So whenever he is available, we are going to start wrapping just the front bumper and rear bumper. That's why I'm kind of hurrying to try, not hurrying, but taking priority on trying to get fog light covers mounted, get the turn signals mounted, and get all this painted, just so whenever he can say, hey, like if he texts me tomorrow saying, hey, I can come up tonight, I want to make sure these bumpers are both ready. Now this one is pretty much ready, but I wanted to make sure that these are ready for whenever he's available. Okay, so bumpers on. License plate lights, usually I believe what they do from the factory is that they're actually tucked up into this area. I'm going to leave them out like this. The only thing I'm going to have to do is I think I'm just going to take a small little piece of electrical tape, and on the inside of this housing I'm going to put a piece of black tape right here, because obviously when the light turns on, it's also going to try and shine this way, like towards the back of the car, when really we just need it to shine down and shine towards the front. So on the inside, I'll black out that area, same with this area right here, just so it doesn't shine backwards, and then that'll be fine. I'm happy with how that looks. And then I have this fender off, the driver's side one, just because I was realigning the door for the last time now, because obviously I need to get to the hinge, which is right here. So now when I open and close the door, it doesn't drop down or it doesn't raise. It's just nice and flush. Oh, that time it didn't close. Everything lines up nice, closes nice, so I did that side. I need to do this side now, but I'm waiting until I take this fender off, because this hood support now is the only hood support that's actually attached. So, because it bolts onto right here. So I'm gonna wait until that other fender is done drying. I'm just painting the, like, this area of it black, just so it kind of just blends in. Once that is done drying, which it'll be done probably in like 10 minutes, I'll put this fender back on and I'll start mounting it permanently this time, and put this hood support back on, and then I'll do the same for that side. And then for the front bumper, I unmasked it, so that area is now black. Same with this side, and now the grill upper area, it's still a little shiny, it's still wet, well, still semi-wet, but that's what it'll pretty much be. I didn't need to make the lines perfect. Like you can see, it kind of goes into the area where I'm going to be wrapping. I wanted it to overlap just a little bit because the white is going to be wrapped over it. Same with like here, like I just made it very, very squared off, and like a really, really bad tape job, but like I said, the wrap is going to be covering all that area, so once it's all wrapped, it'll look a whole lot cleaner. Same with this side, you can see it's all just like janky. The overspray, super, super light. I can't even feel it. Like I said, once it's wrapped, you're not going to notice it anyway. So those are good. I'm just waiting for that grill area to finish drying the rest of the way, and then I'll test fit the front bumper again. I came up with an idea to mount the fog light covers, which are these 90-degree little brackets. I'm not going to be using screws. I'm going to actually bolt it into place, or at least onto the fog light cover. I'll bolt it, and then maybe, because those license plate screws actually held up pretty good, just by, not license plate, the license plate light screws actually held up pretty good. Maybe these will actually work pretty well into the bumper. So once that bumper is done drying, while I'm still working on these fenders as well, just letting them dry, is when I'm going to start trying to mount the fog light covers. Alright, so I came up with my way of how I'm going to be mounting the fog light covers. So I did a poll on Instagram yesterday to see if my Instagram followers would either want to see the covers or a Baja Designs LED fog light kit, which is just like the ditch lights that I have on my truck. That you guys actually don't know what it looks like, but it's more of a squarish round with a 4 LED like driving light. You can get different versions like fog light, spotlight, whatever you want. They're yellow. There's a company that makes a bracket that just bolts into where like the factory fog light mounting bracket would go, and then it protrudes out probably like this far or whatever. So I think that's what probably turned people off. But this is what I decided to go with. I'm going to leave exposed hardware, kind of reminiscing with the old wide body kits and stuff that I did on BRZs, FRSs, and all that, including my own BRZ. So just a little bit of exposed hardware. This is the only exposed hardware on the car because everything else is molded. But I'll show you on this side that's not bolted in what I ended up doing. So I have these 90-degree brackets that I measured. Well, I just held that fog light cover in this area to see where I would want it to rest. Then just marked some holes. I drilled some holes through, and I used the screws that came with this kit, which is just like a regular screw It's not nut and bolted, but it's plenty sturdy for a fog light cover. It's not going to go anywhere. And then I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for this, for how to mount it actually into it. So originally what I was going to try and do is maybe put a nut cert in each one, but I don't think width-wise a nut cert would actually fit in there. So then what I was going to have to do, I knew I wanted to use these M6x1 stainless Allen hardware that I had. So the next thing I was going to do is maybe try and open this hole bigger so I could get my hand in here and put a nut on the bottom end. But this hole right here is like perfectly, almost, it's just a little too small for this bolt to go through. So I had an idea. I'm like, why don't I try and just thread this little piece, because I have the M6x1 tap here, and I was actually able to thread this hole. So now I can grab my hardware, and it now threads right into that bracket. It's not super thick. There's only like 2 or 3 threads like holding the bolt in, but for a fog light cover that weighs pretty much nothing, it's just a piece of fiberglass, and for the, when I'm driving, the wind will be pushing against it, not pulling against it. I don't see why these little threads won't hold. So I'm gonna put this one on just to mock it up. I didn't tighten these completely. The gapping around the fog light cover isn't perfect, but for my OCD, they're good enough. So I'm just gonna grab my socket to just hand thread these in. Alright guys, this is the first time it's actually been on the ground. Just a little while ago I got the brakes bled. That's why now it is off the lift, because now I actually have brakes. So I got this door panel. Well, now I can open the door fully, so now I can get to the door panel. I took this one off. I took the door molding, whatever you want to call it, off, and I prepped the 7 holes right here. I thought it was less than 7. I was hoping it was going to be like 4. There's quite a few in the front, which I don't really understand why there's so many right next to each other. It's just a plastic molding or rubber. I'm not really sure what it's made out of. But so now this side is all prepped. The other side I have not touched yet. Alright, so we're back for another day. I was going to film yesterday because I did a little bit of work on the car yesterday when I was up here, but the battery for this camera was dead and I forgot my GoPro, so I didn't have any camera to film on. But I ended up plugging the holes in the door. I'll show you guys how I did that. But actually also yesterday, what took the majority of the time, and the reason why the Impreza is back on the lift right now, is because Matt was able to come here and we wrapped the rear bumper and actually the front bumper. So I'll give you guys a little sneak peek of the wrap. So it might still look pretty much the same because I'm going with a gloss white, but the bumper is all wrapped. Decided to leave that area black. I still need to wrap the covers, but the grill is now painted black, as you can see. All of it's wrapped gloss white. Same with the rear bumper. Rear bumper is gloss white. It looks super nice, like on camera. On the camera right now, what I can see, it looks nice and shiny, but it looks great. Like that front bumper looks absolutely amazing. So giving me hopes to see, getting me excited about what the rest of this car is going to look like. But so let me show you the doors. So I made a post on one of the Impreza Facebook pages to ask how other people were doing these, if they were just welding it, putting a piece of metal on the back of it and then welding, or if they were using some type of epoxy or whatever. And thankfully I had like a ton of comments about how all those people went about doing it. In the past, what I've done is just use like a body filler on it with like something on the back side of it just to hold it in place. But the downside with the body filler, that over time it could crack and then fall, and then you're back to having a hole again. On the other side, I tried to tack weld it quick the other day when I was here. Not yesterday, but the time before that. and that was not working. A lot of people did say to tack weld, you know, spot weld in place and then just body fill the rest of it. But downside is that it's fairly thin metal and it will create warps if you overheat. And I can weld, but I'm not a skilled welder, so I didn't want to try and push my luck and have it start warping, because then obviously that'll be more body work that I need to do. And a lot of people actually commented saying to use JB Weld. So what I ended up doing is I cut out little tiny, actually I have them over here, little tiny pieces of metal like this. I would sand one side of it to get it all like scored up, and I actually taped it with like masking tape to the inside of the door, and then that made it sit flat, and obviously it just had like a little recessed area where the hole was. And then I just mixed up some JB Weld that I have right here. This is like the JB Weld like Professional or something. Yeah, Professional. It's like a quicker setting JB Weld, and just mixed that up. You know, obviously filled the holes and then just put a little bit extra so I could sand it down, and it seemed to work really well. So this, I'm not worried about the JB Weld like cracking and falling off like regular Bondo would. And then this side as well. This side is all done. So now, before I go wrapping any quarter panels or fenders, I need to sand all this down, because I didn't want to start wrapping this, because I could have wrapped these fenders a while ago, but I don't want to wrap this and then go to sand this and accidentally nick the fender. So I've been waiting to get the doors actually done. So today what I'm going to start with is just sanding these doors. Just sand those down. Then I'll use some glazing putty on whatever I need to just fill. The rest, I have also a little dent right here that you can see kind of in the light. Gonna fill that as well. And then I'll be ready to start wrapping everything else. So that'll be in the next episode for you guys. This episode is just gonna be finalizing the bodywork, and then next we'll be actually wrapping everything for you guys. So let me go grab my sander. I'm gonna start sanding down one of these doors, and we'll see how much body filler I actually have to use afterwards. Alright, so I used my sander. I sanded down all the JB Weld. Most of it actually was flat. There was only a couple pits in a couple of them, but I ended up just doing a little bit of glazing putty over all of them just to make sure they're gonna come out nice and smooth. Now, I just did it, so it's gonna take, I'd say probably about 45 minutes or so for this to actually harden up for me to sand. So in the meantime, I'm going to bring it down and finish sanding the roof, just because there was a little bit of glazing putty on that. And I actually brought the black vinyl wrap with me today to try and wrap the roof. So if I sand that, I got to clean up all the dust off of this car, because this entire thing is dusty. But I figured while this stuff is hardening and drying, I might as well just sand the roof, clean everything up, and see if I can wrap the roof real quick, because it probably shouldn't take too long. I just wrapped the roof, so that's going to be a little bit of a sneak peek for you guys for the actual wrapping video. But, so, I was able to get the front windshield, like roof trim piece and the rear trim piece off. This one came off no problem. Probably just because this windshield in the back has probably never been replaced. This one up here, I ended up mangling, but I am glad I was able to get it off, because it was so much easier to now get the wrap to tuck underneath. But I'm going to have to either order a new piece if they have it, or I might just have to take one off of my white coupe if I could get that one off as well, because I absolutely mangled that one. So this is the rear one. Rear one looks totally fine. Still has all of its clips. And this one, this side looks okay, and it has its clips. And then it starts twisting, and you can see I bent it right there. And actually that was the area where there's supposed to be two clips right here, and those ones actually stayed glued into the windshield itself. So obviously whenever they replaced the windshield, the glue slash sealant that they use, they stick it on, and then the trim pieces they stick on afterwards. So you can see they used a ton of the sealant up here. This is actually one of them that's still stuck. I was able to pull the other one out. But you can even just see like the shape of the indent where the clips would normally go. So I'm gonna either take the one off my white car and hopefully I don't mess it up. If not, then I'll have to just see if I could order a new one through Subaru. And at the same time, I don't even know if it'll clip in again afterwards because of how much sealant there is up there. So I know a guy that does windshields, so I might see how much it'll cost just for a new windshield and have him just come by, take this one out, put the new one in, and at the same time we'll put the trims in, so it all goes in at the same time. So I might just see how much that is. I don't know how much a windshield would be for one of these. I'm hoping since that's so old it's not too expensive. But that also is something that I would like to do at the same time, just because, you know, who knows how long this one's been on the car. Obviously it's not original, but it would be nice to just start this car fresh with a fresh windshield. So now that I just did that and I did a couple other small things, this stuff is actually dry now. So now I'm going to, and then also at the same time I added some more filler to this dent that was right here. This one still feels a little soft, but all the other ones are dry, so I'm going to bring the car back up. And then I'll just do a finishing hand sand on those. Then I'll wet sand it just like I did the roof, and then we are all done with all the bodywork on this car. Finally. So nothing gets me more excited knowing that these are the last things, the doors are the last thing I need to sand before I could just start wrapping this entire car. So let's bring it up. I'm gonna sand those and I'll catch up with you guys right after that. Alright, now just like that, everything's wet sanded. Well, I went over it with 120, knocked down all of the glazing putty, then I wet sanded it. Wet sanded a couple other areas on the door that just needed a little bit of sanding work. But now everything is perfectly smooth. Everything is nice. Obviously it doesn't look great right now just because you guys can see all of the different layers and stuff to it, but you can't really, I won't really be able to get it to focus down the line, but it is nice and smooth. Can't even really tell that they're there other than just visually being able to see that they're there. Same with the other side is all set. So now that is all of the sanding. Super happy that is finally done. Got this little dent filled in too. Now that's good. And that's it. There's one dent right here. It's kind of a large one. You can kind of see it right there. I'm not going to do anything about that. I didn't even know the door had that dent. But besides that, and then that small one, those were the only two dents that both the doors had. I'm not going to try and fill that one. That's a little aggressive to try and fill. So it's gradual enough that, and the car's going to be low enough, you probably won't even be able to notice that it's there. But other than that, car's all set. So now we're ready to start wrapping this thing. So that is going to be it for this episode. Obviously I needed to make the body work video 2 separate videos because it was ending up taking so long. This is a big weight off my shoulders now that the body work is actually done. Now I can just put my head down, just start wrapping it. I'm pretty decent at wrapping. I haven't done too many cars, but I've done maybe 4 full cars and then just pieces here and there for other things. Bumpers are what I have the hardest time with, but thankfully with Matt helping, we are able to get both the bumpers done. Other than that, everything else on the car I could pretty much do by myself. Obviously the larger pieces, like the quarter panels, actually pretty much just the quarter panels, that's going to be a little cumbersome to try and just carry by myself, but I can do it. I've done it before. And then other than that, all the other pieces are pretty much fairly easy. Hood is easy, trunk is pretty much easy. The side skirts will be a piece of cake because they're just straight. And then what else? The spoiler will be the part probably that'll take the longest just because of how intricate it is. I'm gonna have to section it off a bunch of times just to get it to get all the wrap to fit right. that's going to take the most time. That I'll take it off of the car. Obviously I need to wrap the trunk anyway, so that'll come off the car. I'll just put it on this table over here, and I'll just sit down and just start piecing that together. But spoiler will probably be the last thing that I do. It'll get, once I see everything else wrapped and clean, it'll get me really motivated to finish that wing. So that's where I'm going to leave this episode off. Tune into the next episode when I actually start wrapping everything. But thanks so much for watching. Give me a subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.